Coming up, more teams clinch playoff spots, divisions, and a lot more to tell you all about from across the league in Week 16. This is Locked On Now.
The biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
You're listening to Locked On Now, local experts on the biggest stories throughout the NFL. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and thanks so much for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday morning. Our Locked On NFL hosts are here to help break down everything that you need to know from around the NFL throughout the weekend. So let's get right to it with this weekend's biggest game in Arizona back on Saturday.
The biggest game.
The Arizona Cardinals looked like a Super Bowl team early in the season, but after a third straight loss Saturday night against the Colts, Locked On Cardinals is wondering if this team is starting to fall apart at the worst time.
Another missed opportunity for the Arizona Cardinals to clinch a playoff spot in the 2021 season. Bo Brock, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, and they fall short 22-16 to the Indianapolis Colts, who were shorthanded, down several offensive linemen, and their best defensive player in Darius Leonard. Alex.
This isn't a playoff football team right now. There's 2 games left, but what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is there's something missing. We just can't put our finger on what it is. 4 drives of less than a minute and a half. And there's going to be some very interesting conversations going on with Locked On Cardinals this week. I am in the Fire Cliff Kingsbury at the end of the season camp. This has solidified that, and I'm excited to hear what Bo Brock has to say in the Cliff Kingsbury camp. And this is where we're at right now. We just don't agree.
I'm the voice of reason, and I come from a place of logic. And yeah, of course, a 10-win coach, 10-5, the Arizona Cardinals, in a slump right now. They just spotted the Colts 9 points, 7 points from their field goal kicker, missing an extra point, 2 field goals, and then a safety. Can't do that against good teams. That's what they did on Christmas, and that's why they fell short. And once again, looking for help to punch their ticket to the postseason. Like Alex said, we're talking about it all week on Locked On Cardinals.
The Cardinals couldn't clinch a playoff spot on their own on Sunday, but got some help from in the division when the Rams beat the Vikings and punched Arizona's ticket to the postseason. Our Locked On Vikings host recaps a Minnesota loss that now has the Vikings sitting outside of a crowded NFC playoff picture.
Well, that was disgusting. The Vikings fall to 7-8, 30-23 the final score to the Rams. Playoff hopes on life support, franchise on life support. Absolutely putrid offense, especially in the first half. Tons of 3-and-outs. Tons of really difficult time moving the ball. The Vikings got their asses kicked on both sides of the ball in the trenches specifically. The Rams ran for something close to 962 yards and basically ran the clock out. They got the ball with 8.5 minutes left with the Vikings down a score, and they ran off most of that and kicked a field goal to basically ice it. So Vikings fall to 7-8. Playoff hopes still technically alive, but with the Eagles winning, it becomes really difficult. They're going to need to win out and get a lot of help from here on out. So yeah, it's probably time to start having those coaching conversations, which we will. We'll already talk some. We'll talk a little bit more on the Locked On Vikings podcast, wherever you find your favorite shows.
The Pittsburgh Steelers took a beating on Sunday, losing to the Chiefs by 26 points without things ever even getting close. After a whole lot of things going wrong yesterday, Locked On Steelers is wondering whether or not this team has enough to compete, even if it can manage to make the playoffs in just 2 weeks.
I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast, and here's your Locked On Now reaction to the Steelers' utter beatdown at the hand of the Kansas City Chiefs, 36-10. It was the worst loss of the Steelers season. You could put it right up there with the Bengals. They're kind of in the same territory, but this was just an utter smackdown from the second the game started. The Steelers came out, handed the ball to the Chiefs. The Chiefs ran it down their throats, or threw it down their throats, however you want to say it. It was just ugly all around. Mahomes throws 3 touchdowns, all 3 of them to guys not named Tyreek Hill. Hill was actually limited limited to 19 yards in this game. But the true abysmal part of this game was the Ben Roethlisberger and the offense all just stunk. Ben Roethlisberger comes out and throws an inexcusable interception. Then Deontay Johnson comes out and has an inexcusable fumble. Then Kendrick Green goes out and it has an inexcusable missed block that allows Ben Roethlisberger to get crushed, and a fumble that hands the Chiefs the ball. Crazy enough, all the things that went wrong in this game, and there's still more things to talk about that went wrong. But somehow the Steelers do have a shot at the playoffs. Is it even relevant at this point? Will they even stand a chance against a playoff team? We'll talk about that, all the things that went wrong, and what needs to change for the Pittsburgh Steelers on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. You can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube.
Coming up, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers didn't miss a step despite missing some of their biggest playmakers. This is Locked On Now NFL. BetOnline has you guys covered this holiday season with more props, odds, lines than ever before as football continues its march through the College Bowl season and the Pro Football Playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage on the new amazing offers available. Again, you can head to the website to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, where the game starts. You're listening to Locked On Now NFL. I'm Kim Becker, and thanks for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won big without big stars in Sunday's best performance.
The best performance.
Hold up.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers clinched a playoff spot and the division all in one on Sunday by beating the Carolina Panthers without Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Leonard Fournette. Tampa still put up 32 points on one of the best defenses in the NFL. Locked On BUCS tells you all the good news from the historic win for the franchise.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers clinched the NFC South and a spot in the playoffs thanks to standout performances by safety Jordan Whitehead, who was by far the player of the game, as well as key contributions from wide receiver Cyril Grayson and running backs Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn. Vaughn had a 55-yard touchdown run to get the scoring started for the Buccaneers as they put up nearly 400 yards against the number 2 defense in the National Football League. The Buccaneers have now clinched their first division crown since 2007 and have guaranteed themselves at least one home playoff game as they continue to battle with the Dallas Cowboys and now the Los Angeles Rams for playoff seeding position. This may have been the last game that Cam Newton will play as a Carolina Panther in front of his home fans there at Bank of America Stadium, and it was not a great performance by Newton, who was swapped in and out with Sam Darnold throughout the game. Darnold ended up coming in for the majority of the second half, while the Buccaneers defense racked up 7 sacks and got an interception against the convoy of quarterbacks. For more on this story and all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers, make sure you tune in to the Locked On BUCS podcast, free and available on all platforms here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A whopping by the Dallas Cowboys and an upset by the Houston Texans. Let's look around the league. Meanwhile, the Washington football team took more than a huge loss on the scoreboard. This third straight loss may have effectively ended Washington's playoff hopes as well. And Locked On Washington football team goes over all of that in their postgame.
All right, Washington football team fans, mercifully, it is over. A 56-14 beatdown by the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in Arlington just about ends any realistic hope of the Washington football team making the playoffs. Losers of 3 in a row, all 3 in the division, 2 in Dallas, and of course sandwiched in between a loss in Philadelphia on Tuesday night. They allow 497 yards of offense, 2 touchdowns to the Cowboys defense and special teams, 1 a blocked punt return for a touchdown and 1 an interception for a touchdown, and plenty of regular offense by the Cowboys as well. And the highlight of the night, or the low light of the night, depending on your perspective, the fireworks on the Washington football bench between two longtime teammates, both at the University of Alabama and now with the Washington football team, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, where Allen was saying something on the bench. Clearly, it irked Payne, who stood up, waved his finger basically in Allen's face, and may have made a motion indicating a gunshot. And then Jonathan Allen stood up and threw a punch. And that's basically what has transpired over the last 3.5 hours. Washington 6-9 on the year with 2 games left to go before, thankfully, the end of the season. I'm Chris Russell. Thanks for watching Locked On Now.
If the playoffs started today, the Philadelphia Eagles would take the NFC's last wild card spot after beating the New York Giants by 24 Sunday afternoon. It's been a long road back to above 500 for Philadelphia, as Locked On Eagles explains now.
The Philadelphia Eagles are now in a playoff spot in the NFC. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks to a blowout 34-10 win at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday, the Eagles are now 8-7 on the season, the first time they're over 500 since week 1, and they find themselves as the 7th seed in the NFC. This came in spite of yet another slow first half start for the offense and for special teams. Just 3 points for the Birds in the first half, but the Eagles defense held strong, holding Jake Fromm in the Giants offense to just 3 points. And then the Eagles, the floodgates open for them. They outscored the Giants 31-7 in the second half, and the key plays in that half were interceptions early from Rodney McLeod and a great punt return from Jalen Reagor to set up this offense in the red zone, and the offense did take over eventually. Jalen Hurts got hot. The wide receivers made some incredible plays down the field, including Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins. And hey, how about a big man touchdown from Lane Johnson? The first time an Eagles offensive lineman has had a touchdown in over a decade. 8-7, 2 more games to go. If the Eagles win both, they'll find themselves in the playoffs. I'm Louis DiBiase. This is Locked On Eagles.
While Philly moved into a playoff spot with that win, the New York Giants were mathematically eliminated by losing on Sunday. Our Locked On Giants host tells us how the game and the season fell apart over time for New York.
The New York Giants' struggles on offense continued this week as they managed just 10 points, including 7 in garbage time, losing to the Philadelphia Eagles 34-10 at Lincoln Financial Field. Hi, everybody. I'm Patricia Traynor, host of the Locked On Giants podcast. And the Giants' loss officially eliminates them from the playoff consideration. Not that they were really in the playoff consideration to begin with, but mathematically they are now officially eliminated. And it also marked their 8th game this season in which they lost by more than 2 scores. Quarterback Jake Fromm made his debut as an NFL starter, but he didn't get a whole lot of support from the play calling or from his supporting cast. Fromm finished 6 of 17 for 25 yards before being relieved by Mike Glennon, who wasn't all that better, as he finished 17 of 27 for 93 yards. The Giants' offense actually failed to cross the century mark in net offensive yards recorded until about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. With 2 games remaining, at best, the Giants can hope to match their win total from last season when they went 6-10. But with how they've been playing of late, that's a tall order for head coach Joe Judge's beaten and bruised team. For more on the New York Giants, keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
The Los Angeles Chargers were the victims of the upset of the weekend. LA lost on the road to Houston and gave up 41 points in the process, which of course has Locked On Chargers asking some serious questions post-game.
Chargers fans, after a game like that, you have every reason to be upset. Daniel Wade here from Locked On Chargers, coming to you after the Chargers' 41-29 loss to the Houston Texans. The easiest game left on their schedule, the 3-11 Texans going into this, and the Chargers can't get it done in embarrassing fashion. And defensively, the Chargers were missing their stars. No Derwin James, no Joey Bosa, no Michael Davis, just to name a few of the guys. But still, the Texans were decimated with COVID issues as well. There's no excuse to look like the worst defense in the NFL. Against the worst rushing attack in the league in the Texans, you gave up almost 200 rushing yards and 5.5 yards per carry. And against one of the worst teams in the NFL converting third downs, you let them go 9 out of 13 on third down and only force 1 punt on the day. I mean, it was just atrocious. Offensively, the Chargers turned the ball over 3 times. It turned into 17 points for the Houston Texans, and they were just out of sync all day, and the depth was exposed in this game. The Chargers were missing key players. The guys they had filling in could not step up and get the job done, and now the Chargers still have a great chance of making the playoffs if they win out. But how can you have any confidence that they're going to do that after the performance they put up on Sunday? But for what's next, make sure to check out the new Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and find the show free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from.
That's a wrap for us. Thanks so much for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. For more on the National Football League and your favorite team, make your second listen Locked On NFL and your team's Locked On podcast. I'm Kim Becker. This has been Locked On Now, Locked On your team every day.